I mean, like, how bad is Tim Boyle? Like, if you can't,
Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, anybody, go call Carson Wentz. I don't care who it is. They can't put this kid back out on the field, and Sunday night everyone will see it.
And you can't explain it away. The problem is they had their Brock Purdy in there and Mike White. They should have signed Mike White. If this is supposed to be a gap year for Zach Wilson this year, why can't we bring in competition for this player? Everybody else has to compete for their job, and it seems like he's been given more than 3 opportunities to prove that he's a good quarterback.
That's because the general manager made one of the biggest mistakes in draft history by taking him second in the draft, and they were hoping that Aaron Rodgers, among the million other things they were counting on Rodgers to do, could resurrect him and make that look like the pick wasn't so incredibly bad. And so when Rodgers went down, they lost a lot of things, including that. Dan.
The key thing here is the backup quarterback is not the 53rd most important position on the roster.
That's right.
You have to treat it as important. The Colts lost their guy, Richardson, to a concussion. They put Gardner Minshew in, they win the game, right? The Carolina loses their guy, they put Andy Dalton in. They don't win the game, but he gave them a shot, right?
Yeah.
So you see it all around the league. The Saints are going to start Jameis Winston this week. Like, that's not their ideal situation, but it's better than a lot of other potential solutions when your starting quarterback gets hurt. You're right. The mistake was holding on to Zach Wilson and not replacing him as the number 2 quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers.
Greeny, quarterbacks are like head coaches. You know it when you see it. It could be a little bit bumpy, but there's a trajectory. He can't see the field. Darren Orlovsky was on yesterday. Totally disagree. Not that Nathaniel Hackett is doing a great job, but there were plenty of plays last week against the Patriots. Check the ball down, get rid of the ball out of your hands. And when he took that sack, that was just a referendum on him not being able to see the field.
Well, here's the thing, man. From a player's perspective, sometimes you just need to make a change for change's sake. And I feel like that's where this team is. You saw Garrett Wilson and Michael Carter on the sideline last week against the Patriots. They realize that Zach does not give them a chance to win football games. And so we want to see if there's somebody else that can step in and that can manage the game better than we can. Or at the very least, somebody that can step in and not take a safety in a 3-point ball game when we got a chance to try to compete. So I think it's the mistakes that Zach Wilson has made. And then with this roster, this locker room, they always go back to the context of what we saw last year when Zach struggled and some of the things that he said post-game that became problematic for them. Zach is not in a good place. This team is not in a good place. And so I think this is a leadership moment for Rob Saleh in order to salvage the rest of the locker room and try to make sure that he has the ear of the players. He's got to hear them and make a change at quarterback.
Greeny, one other thing, like these guys know, like the locker room, it's the ultimate meritocracy, and these guys know everyone else is held accountable, and what's being shown on the field, on the sidelines, is the frustration, which is like, if I'm not playing well, you would bench me. Why is that guy being held to a different standard? It's not right.
The issue is it doesn't even look professional. Like, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look professional, like he has a clue, right? And that's, I can't understand. I swear I feel like I'm living the same movie. I experienced this with Kyle Bowler. Kyle Bowler was like the number 7 player, and we had a Super Bowl-ready defense, and we ended up having to go to Steve McNair, and he just doesn't, like, simple basic plays. I don't know what type of game plan outside of handing the ball off 86 times or 40 times a game that I can even devise to come up, because he's not seeing the field. His guy's wide open. You've tried every concept. They've tried boots, throwbacks. They've tried pick plays, rub routes, and he's just not seeing the field, and he's been coached so much that he can't pull the trigger. He's freezing in the pocket.
Let's make it clear. When you lose your starting quarterback 4 plays into the season, it's going to destroy almost every team in the NFL. The point you were making about Gardner Minshew is a good one, but you're not winning the Super Bowl with him.
Right.
If that's what happens if your quarterback gets a sprained ankle and you need someone to play for 2 weeks.
Right.
But when you're facing an entire season, you have to have someone who at least gives you a chance to compete, or that team is going to implode or explode, whichever way you want to put it.
The question, and I live in Connecticut. There are Jets fans all over. Anybody. They got to get somebody, right? They got to get somebody, right? And I'm like, it's too early in the season to go get somebody. It's too early in the season to make the Ryan Tannehill or the Kirk Cousins trade, right? But the point is, somebody keep you afloat until then, right? If that time does come when you can make the upgrade, then maybe it is Trevor Siemian, but they're a couple weeks late in bringing him in, even if it is.
Why in the world were they waiting for? Aaron Rodgers got hurt on September 11th. If Tim Boyle isn't ready to play at all, why did it take them 2 weeks to sign Trevor Siemian?
Greeny, they've done a great job, but they should have been on the phone from MetLife scouring.
They've done a great job of what?
What? That's what I was about to ask.
Building a good defense and getting guys like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall.
How fragile is Zach Wilson that he can't handle having somebody who is a threat to take his job? Every other position,
What do you mean how fragile? How fragile can a person be? That's how fragile.
I feel like they didn't bring somebody in because they didn't want him to be threatened and feel like his job was at risk when it should be every other.
Well, the GM and the head coach put their jobs at risk by doing that, by not signing Mike White this offseason, a guy that signed with the division rival 2 years, $8 million. By not re-signing Mike White, they put their jobs at risk. That's why the Aaron Rodgers injury does not give Rob Saleh or Joe Douglas a pass. I get that they've drafted well, but they missed on the most important position in all of team sports, and they had the second overall pick.
Yeah.
So either they can't develop it properly or they picked the wrong guy. Either way, it's going to cost them their jobs because they didn't have a contingency plan behind Aaron Rodgers.
By the way, drafting so well, they've also taken Mekhi Becton in the first round. They took Will McDonald in the first round this year, who's a healthy scratch. He's not even playing on their defense. And they took Zach Wilson second overall.
But he can play, though. Listen,
let me say why is he playing?
Because it's hard to put up 10 defensive linemen. That's why, because they have great, that's their strength. So that's depth. That's a depth piece for Carl Lawson.
Okay, let's see it when it happens.
But I tell you what, man, like to give Joe Douglas just a little grace, I mean, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, that draft class has turned out to be a bust.
A little grace? He's been here since 2019.
Bro, I'm talking about
How much grace does he need?
I'm talking about the quarterback draft. That draft turned out to be a horrible draft. There's 3 quarterbacks that may be backups for the rest of their career.
I know, and there was a mandate, we found out, that you have to take a quarterback in the draft no matter what happens, even if they're terrible. No, you don't. Listen, you get judged based upon the results. You get judged based upon the way things turn out, and things have turned into a disaster. So look, I mean, sometimes you just have a bad day. Great players have bad days, good teams have bad days. That can happen. But one thing that is becoming a real question mark is their red zone offense. Dan Orlovsky did a great breakdown on here yesterday. It's all over Twitter and everything if you want to see it, about the things, the opportunities they're missing in that red zone. CD Lamb's only got 2 targets all season long. They're not turning those opportunities into touchdowns. How big a concern is that for the Cowboys, especially against Belichick? Well,
they have to be able to capitalize in the green zone, you know, what we call the red zone. You know, you talk about being able to, 5 field goals against the Jets. You know, and those problems were able to be swept under the rug because you were still winning. But what happens is when it comes down to these tight games, the difference between 3 and 7 is astronomical in being able to change the narrative of the game, be able to apply pressure on opposing teams. Dak Prescott has to be better. This is something that I believe has been going on for a couple of seasons, in my opinion. I think he has to make better decisions, and he's trying to find that balance between being aggressive and being safe because you have this great defense, so you don't want to, take points off the board. In doing so, he's missing opportunities to try to blow the games wide open.
It's an interesting game in so many different ways. We talk about what Arizona did against the Cowboys last week. Well, New England can do a lot of those same things, the physicality on their defense, running the football with their offense. What's the one thing that stands out to you about this game?
It's going to be a low-scoring game. Greeny, it's a mortal lock. I don't gamble. Whatever the over-under is, take the under.
43.5.
Yeah, my son may go to community college after I say this, but I'm telling you, it's going to be a low-scoring game because New England can't score. They couldn't against the Jets last week. Dallas has a great defense. And remember what Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer have done is they played a lot more efficiently. And look, I think on the red zone, they have 3 tight ends. They have a total of 12 catches. Keep an eye on second-round pick Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan. I think he'll help as the season goes on. But in terms of this game, this is 14-10 written all over it.
Yeah, I think it's a get-right game for the Dallas defense. I don't know if it's a get-right game for the offense because New England plays very good defense.
Yeah.
I picked Dallas to win the game because I don't think New England can outscore them. And I also think on the week that they lost in Arizona, a terrible loss, I think everybody agrees, we're focusing on the flaws of the Dallas Cowboys, and I think maybe forgetting how good they looked the first 2 weeks. They're a very, very good team, and I think they'll show that. I would like New England better this week if Dallas wasn't coming off a loss.
And the Trayvon Diggs injury, of course, happened during practice during that week before.
A couple days before.
Maybe they're deflated and all that, whatever the case may be. I just look at this, and it's the Zeke Elliott revenge game. Put the picks up on the screen if you would be so kind, Cindy, just to see where everybody is going. Everybody is going. Dallas. The only reason for that? Because my pick isn't on the screen. You guys take up all the room. I've got the Patriots this week. It's the Zeke Elliott revenge game. This is his Super Bowl, RC. What?
What about Stephon Gilmore for a pick 6 for Dallas?
Stephon Gilmore revenge game.
I don't see it. Mac Jones doesn't throw the pick 6. And on the other side, I think that the Patriots and their coach know exactly what to do and, more importantly, what not to do against the Cowboys. This is a bad matchup. RC, how do you see it?
I don't necessarily think it's a bad matchup. I believe defensively, the New England Patriots are put together and coached so well that they're a tough matchup for anybody. But I think defensively is where the Dallas Cowboys step up. It's nothing like being embarrassed. And Bart knows this. When you walk into a stadium and you believe you are who they say you are, and you get punched in the mouth and you can't defend and you don't punch back, that's a difficult thing to deal with. And Dan Quinn can go into that meeting and tell you anything that he wants. He can point out all the flaws that they may not have pointed out in week 1 and week 2 because you were finding ways to win in the ways that you play the run, in the ways that you two-gap, in the ways that you feel. Understanding that in our sub-packages, we can be taken advantage of somewhat in the run. How do we shore those things up? And as much as we know it's a statement game, the Dallas Cowboys know it's a statement game now. The Dallas Cowboys know that no matter from here until forever, wherever Bill Belichick coaches, whenever he's on the field, you can make a statement against that man. And I believe the Dallas Cowboys will step up to show that this week, especially defensively.
Well, listen, we lost Jim Leonard in the middle of the week, and it was an emotional letdown for us. And we got the doors blew off of us by the New England Patriots 45-3. And then now you have to readjust your scheme. I think Dan Quinn's going to have the time to take a breath and adjust his scheme. And I'm interested to see how Bill Belichick tries to take away Michael Parsons, because traditionally when he's going against dominant players like J.J. Watt, he's found ways to take him out of the game. I can't wait to see that chess match.
I just don't think the Patriots have the players to take advantage of Trayvon Diggs not being out there. Pop Douglas is a guy.
Well, running the ball, man.
But they're trying. But I'm just saying, in the vulnerability in this Dallas secondary, I just don't see New England having the ability to score the points.
I know, but Arizona ran the ball down their throats the entire game. That's the thing. The really great teams can beat you however you want to play them. I don't know that the Cowboys have 4 different ways they can beat you. They have one really good way to beat you. Get out in front, then they can lean on you with their offensive line and unleash the hounds on the defensive side and go after your quarterback. But if that is a close game and you're running the ball against them and you force them to have to make plays on the offensive side late in the game, then I like Belichick's defense and forcing them into making a big mistake.
Because you said offensive line, we should point out they were missing 3 starters on the line last week, and it looks like they have a chance to get at least 2 of them back this week, so that'll make a difference.
Absolutely, but not on the defensive side, and that's where Arizona gashed them. RC, I'm trying as hard as I can to talk anyone into coming with me onto this side of this thing. Yeah. I like Belichick this week.
Greeny.
Yeah.
Greeny, there is nothing a Jets fan could tell me to make me be on them sides, and you're actually my friend. Not having it. Don't care. If you root for the Jets right now, I feel like everything you do in football is wrong, and I'm sorry. I can't come to your side, Greeny. Maybe next week. Maybe next week.